All right, here's my #1 tip for keeping your Monstera looking this full and happy. Are you ready? I actually don't keep it like this. My Monstera only looks like this when I'm taking photos or if I have guests over. The rest of the time, it looks like this. Yep. It's not as attractive, but each leaf on a Monstera, it's basically like a satellite dish. So they need to face their light source. A lot of people turn their Monsteras a lot, kind of like you would with this Palea down here to keep them even, and that's just not the kind of plant it is, so it's never gonna look good. That's actually why some of my older leaves look like this, is from me constantly turning them before I knew. My Monstera is also on a trellis. He's attached with these like little twist ties. It's like a 36-inch trellis. And yeah, he's gendered, he doesn't care. His name is Monty, he's fabulous. This is Spot.
This plant is out of control and top heavy. First thing I want to do is get it out of the pot. Now the root ball isn't large enough for this plant to warrant a larger pot, so I'm going to be potting it back in the pot she already had. But first I want to clean it out. I've swept out all the soil, isopropyl alcohol. Okay, now we'll add the support, soil, and the plant. Now we backfill. Slap that pot, settle your soil. Get it in there. It's good. Will you stand up? Not yet. Okay, glad we're clear on that one. Make sure my pole's nice and straight. Now let's tie it up. Remember, whenever you're tying up a Monstera, you only want to tie the stem, not the petiole. Petioles are gonna rotate to follow the sun, and if you tie them to the pole, they won't be able to rotate, so they won't receive as much light. That's better.
Here I am in the kitchen and I keep stepping on this aerial root. It's actually coming from this big Monstera here. The roots have sort of taken over. I put them in this jar and I think that only encouraged them to grow. I tried keeping them wrangled, but they're just in the way, so I'm gonna have to cut this. That is all.
Today, I'm so nervous because I'm cutting up my Monstera elbow. I've had this plant for almost a year now. This is the top cut. This was the first cut that I made. It's got 14 leaves, so I'm keeping these 2 top cut leaves for myself. And then I cut myself, so had to bandage that up. And it's been over an hour since that happened and the cut is still bleeding, so that's really fun. Then this leaf I'm also keeping for myself, gonna grow that into a new plant, and then I'm giving this leaf away to a friend who's been like the biggest supporter of this plant. And then the next 5 leaves, I only show 3 of them here, but the next 5 leaves that I cut off, I'm actually selling. They're all spoken for through a plant Facebook group. And then I'm leaving the plant with 5 leaves on the bottom to grow more leaves out of. So at the end of this, I'll have 3 plants and I'll have gotten rid of 6 of my 14 leaves. This has been such a fun plant to grow and I can't wait to have more.
If you're thinking about getting a Monstera, you better stop and listen to this because there's a lot of shit that people do not tell you about these hoes. So first things first is these bitches are fucking dusty, like Dusty Dinkelman from Just Friends. Especially if you got a diffuser, that shit, instead of bringing the dust to the ground, is going to bring it on top of your leaves. And what are leaves? They are solar panels. That hoes even reaching towards the sun as we speak. And if there's dust on the panels, if there's dust on the leaves, you're not going to be able to photosynthesize and your plant's going to be stagnant. The next thing is a classic overwatering. Monsteras get overwatered very easily. They retain a lot of moisture, and then look at that hoe. I left that in there for 2 days and it's fucked up. So there's a lot of excess moisture that you're gonna want to pour out. And the thing, when you overwater, thrips fucking come. Look at these hoes. They eat the cell membrane and they look like they pay the fucking bills, bitch, but you don't. So you're gonna have to take some houseplant insect control. I don't read directions, so I just sprinkled that sprinkle on top. I mix it in a little bit. This is gonna prevent the thrips from laying eggs for the next generation to come. And then you're just gonna want to, oh man, my throat got dry. Then you're just gonna pluck those already infected leaves off, take some isopropyl alcohol, just give it a little dabbity dab on a napkin and wipe that bitch down. What the alcohol is gonna do is that it's gonna burn these bitches alive, but I don't give a fuck because I pay good money for this Monstera. Get in those petioles too because they like to hide in there. You're also gonna want to make sure you get proper airflow. If you don't have good airflow, it's not gonna happen. If you want a good front-facing Monstera, you need to make sure the nodes are facing the right way. This is a great example of what not to do right here. is the nodes are facing all which kind of way, so you might want to replant it if you want that look so they're not crisscross. This is a perfect example of the nodes facing the same way in a beautiful Monstera.
Grace needs a new pot again. I don't want to put Grace in a new pot again, but god damn it. I stuck my finger in the top to see if she was dry and felt root an inch below the surface. So we're gonna repot Gracie today. I don't want to do this, like, at all. This giant here, 12-inch pot to like this 14-inch pot or something. I don't know what they are at this point. They're just expensive. I'm gonna use soil I made last week. I'm gonna add some coir chips to it. My goal is to not move Gracie. I'm just gonna try and plop her from there into here. It's not gonna work, but I'm gonna try. Oh, Gracie. She just keeps getting bigger. And now I play, what the fuck do I do now? This is when I start getting creative, y'all. I'm basically gonna lay you down in here. Oh my god, Gracie, go back. I should have done this in the garage. I thought this would be easier. I was wrong. Oh, fuck me. Here we go. And they're up to my elbow. It's like birthing a calf or something. I'm totally birthing it. I just don't trust it. It's too leany. Lovely. I made sure to give her a front and back here. Flat here. That means I can push her up against the wall. On here, babe? I don't know. Let's see. No. Oh, god damn it. Here's our newest leaf, by the way. Well, like 100 hours later, we're done. I'm gonna go not pot anything. That's not true. I'm definitely gonna pot something, but it's not gonna be a plant, so. See ya.
So sadly, at this stage of the plant's life, it's mostly about luck. I'm only joking. None of this is about luck. Remember these 4 things. So a lot of this information could be applied to many, many plants, but today we're specifically talking about the Monstera. Number 1, the first thing to remember is that your Monstera has 2 fronts and 2 backs, and it's up to you to align them. So you're going to have the front that's facing the biggest light source, which is probably a window. But you also have the actual front of the plant, which is where the leaves come out. And then the back of the plant is where the aerial roots come out. This is Monstera specifically now. Aerial root, and then on the opposite side is a leaf. Aerial root, leaf, aerial root, leaf. So this is the back of the plant, and that's the front. The earlier you get onto this, the better, because you can train all the aerial roots then to come out the back and all the leaves to come out the front. And it'll look more like this. Because remember, what we're looking at here is the front of the plant, not the back. I'll show you the back in a minute. So you want the actual front of the plant pointing out the window. And that's because it mainly won't have to turn itself towards its light source. Which means there's no need to ever rotate a plant to give the back light, because you're just undoing the work that the plant has already done. Number 2, support. Big support and a big pot equals big leaves on your Monstera. You can see if I move this even a little bit, the whole plant moves, which means the plant is being really supported by this stick. Because the thing you need to remember about Monsteras is they're not going to put out bigger leaves until they know they have the support for it. So this is why all the aerial roots come out. Like in its natural environment, a Monstera would have loads of support from its host tree. But here it doesn't have a host tree, so we have to provide the support. And then once the Monstera knows that its big heavy leaves have got support, it can continue putting out big heavy leaves. But it's not going to do that if it knows it's just going to pull itself over. Then it's going to start putting out smaller leaves so it doesn't weigh itself down as much. I use a new shovel handle I bought in a hardware store that I hammer down into the middle of the pot. It's nice and sturdy, or you can make your own moss pole. But as you can see, my support pole is no longer fit for purpose because the plant is now actually taller than it. So I'll have to extend it a little bit. Number 3, pruning. One thing I love to do is prune my plant. So if there's any damaged leaves or maybe leaves that are growing in completely the wrong direction, I just cut them off. A healthy plant that's growing will be able to handle it no problem. And this forms the shape a little bit better. And it makes the plant look prettier because any leaves that are burnt or torn or damaged in any way, they just get removed. And it encourages new growth and all the good stuff anyway, so don't think you're harming your plant by pruning. This leaf is going to be the next to go. Number 4, bend and contort. Bamboo sticks and gardener's wire. This is bendable rubber string that holds its position and it's grippy. It's great for tying up plants. You'd be surprised at how much the leaves can actually bend once you're slow and careful about it. Use bamboo sticks and gardener's wire to bend the leaves into whatever position you want them to grow in. You can completely contort the plant, so make sure it's growing in the direction you want it to. See, I tied the plant up in loads of different places just to be able to get the exact shape I wanted to grow in. Then just remove the sticks after a couple of days and you'll find that the leaf will stay there by itself. Then my last little tip is about light. Monsteras can absolutely handle a couple of hours of full sun. Mine is in a south-facing window and does very well. But one thing to remember is if your plant is used to growing in a shaded spot, you can't move it too quickly into full sun, otherwise it'll burn. So do it in gradual steps. Maybe take a month to move it from, let's say, the back of the room right up to the window where it can get full sun. It's just the same that if the plant is used to growing in full sun and you move it to a darker corner, it's not going to do well either. But if you move it slowly to the darker corner, it'll be just fine. But give them as much light nearly as you can give them. And then if you do find your plant burning, just pull it back a little bit from the window and then wait a week and you could probably push it forward slowly again. Just be gradual about it, that's all. But with the goal of trying to give it as much light as possible. Within reason, obviously. So seeing that this is actually the front of the plant, these leaves are hard compared to the leaves at the back. They're a harder shell on them because they're used to the fuller light. So it's protecting itself. But there'd be absolutely no point in me turning around and exposing the back of the plant out the window because the plant isn't set up like that. It's all facing that direction on purpose to be able to gather as much light as it can and as much surface area. So this is the back, but as you can see, it looks completely different because I have all the leaves trained forward and that's the way they want to grow anyway, towards the front of the plant, but also towards the light. So understand that this is the side of the plant that I normally see because the other half of the plant is looking out the window. And I have a beautiful new leaf coming here and it's going to fill up that big gap up there and it's going to make the plant even taller. There's so much leaf here.